For some reason, I do always come back to guitar amp combos. They are easy to use. Most of them are easy to carry. You just have that one unit. You don't have to think about an extra FR speaker or an extra cabinet. You just have that one good sounding unit that you are relying on. And when you add in some modern features, I'm not seeing that the combo will disappear anytime soon, even though it's a very old concept for us guitar players. And that is what we are seeing with the new Supro Airwave. And in this video, I'm going to cover everything that I think is important about that amp. It is a sponsored video, but I'm not holding anything back if I feel that there's something that I need to point out. First, I made a song using this amp. I'm cranking it. I'm using both the boost and the overdrive. And here it is. I'm filming this review whilst on vacation in Norway, so you get to see a bit of what I see whilst traveling around. Features of this amp, or at least the most important ones. It's 25 watts powered by a 12AX7 preamp and dual 6v6 tubes, and it's a Class A amp from Supro. You have some built-in analog effects, boost, overdrive, reverb and tremolo. And then of course, really important, you have the built-in 2 notes cabinet simulation into the amp. You have 6 modern and 6 vintage sounding cabinets, and you can switch between them. You also have the software that you can use on your Mac or PC or even on your phone via Bluetooth, and there's a lot of things you can switch inside the software. So there are a ton of tonal options in this amp. You can also go stereo out from the amp, and you have a headphone jack if you just want to play with headphones. And you can turn off the speaker and make the amp completely silent if you want to do so. That's also really important. And a very good feature that I would pay a lot for back in the day when I was learning guitar. So that is some of the features. I will talk more about them throughout this video. The first thing that I noticed when I got the amp, I was looking at everything and I didn't see any kind of power scaling. I'm very used to see that on modern amps these days. And I thought, okay, this amp just has a master volume. Does that really hold up in 2025? So let's listen to it first, and then I will share some thoughts on that after that. And as you probably could hear in that clip, you are losing out on some of that power amp saturation when you're turning down the master volume. So I had to compensate using the volume or the preamp gain to get a similar level of saturation. And is that a big miss for me? No, not really. If you want to crank the amp and get that sound, you are probably using the 2 notes anyway, or you are in a professional studio where you are able to crank the amp and not care about volume at all. So it's really only in the situation where you are rehearsing at home alone and you want the sound of a cranked amp. And I think definitely you will survive in that situation with turning down the master volume or using a overdrive pedal. Live or with a band, I don't think you need power scaling. So for me, it's only in that situation where you are playing alone and you want the sound of a amp like going nuts. Overall, I think you will be covered with different types of overdrive sounds coming from this amp, and adding some sort of power scaling would probably just add to the price. So yeah, it's not a miss for me. The reverb is really nice and it sounds like this. The tremolo is also nice and it sounds like this. With the boost, you're just getting more of everything, and that's usually what I'm looking for in a boost, and now you just have it in the amp, which is really nice, and it sounds like this. The overdrive, on the other hand, is not that versatile. It's a bit hard to control. It sounds a bit muddy to me, and it's something that I can use for some things, and it works really well for that, but it's not my all-around overdrive sound. So I think if you want to get this amp, do not sell your overdrive pedals before getting it. I think you will still need them. I think most people, even beginners, they have one overdrive pedal that they like. And then, of course, you can use the special, let's call it special, the special overdrive in the Airwave for some situations, because it's not horrible, but it's just a bit too special for most occasions, in my opinion. Maybe you like it more than me. And I don't think it's a big negative at all, because I do prefer to use my own overdrive pedals. I use 100 of them when I record or do my stuff, and then I just have another special one inside the amp. But it's worth mentioning for this review. And I did mention briefly that I really like the sound of the amp. If you took away all the effects and the two notes, I would still think that this is a really good amp. 25 watts is enough for me. For everything that I do, the size of the amp, the speaker and the wattage is sort of on the edge of where it could potentially sound a bit boxy and small, but it does not sound boxy at all. It sounds like a normal combo, and that is really good. And I also think that you have enough clean headroom in the amp if you need that. course, there's the built-in 2 notes. Here's a simple demo where I showcase all of the built-in cabinet captures into the amp, just so you can hear the difference between them. And then you have the pre and post button on the amp. When you have it in post, you are using everything in the amp. The preamp, the power amp, the output transformer, and potentially the real speaker in the amp. You can also use the post mode when using the 2 notes. Then you are just simulating the cab and the mic capture. When you put it into pre, you are only using the preamp, the real preamp from the amp, and the rest is emulated by the 2 notes DSP. So instead of having two 6V6 tubes in the power amp of the amp, you now have a emulated 6L6 power amp in the 2 notes DSP. And I saw that Supro said that it sounds a bit more hi-fi when you have the pre mode on the amp, and I think I agree on that. I still think that I prefer to use the post mode and have everything real, but it's nice to have even more tonal features when you are recording, for example. Yeah. So what are my final thoughts on the Supro Airwave? I think it's a very good overall package. For someone who struggles a bit with using the new digital stuff, even though I think they sound really good at this point, just really good. I struggle a bit with using them together with a monitor or a FR type of speaker. I just prefer having a combo behind me, and I'm not the person who needs to have a lot of volume behind me, but it's just having something there, and that's always why I come back to combos, because they are the simplest to use, yeah, as I said in the intro of this video. And when you add in the modern features, I've been using the 2 note stuff for forever, since I started this YouTube channel, and I think it's just great. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Sometimes I do mic up amps, especially when I do like these weird miking techniques where I place a mic from a distance or from a really weird angle. I still like to do that, but for most of the time I use my Torpedo Live, the old rack unit. And when you have that built into the amp, I don't think you can ask for a lot more, really. You can do the recording, you can use that live instead of using a mic on stage. As I said, I don't mind the master volume. I think that works really well. The amp itself sounds fantastic. You have the special overdrive. Bear in mind that special is not necessarily a negative loaded word. It's sort of both good and bad. So yeah, I would use this amp mostly with my own overdrive and gain pedals, and then I just have the option to use that overdrive if I want to. You can control the boost, overdrive, tremolo and reverb with a foot switch, but you don't get any foot switches with the amp when you buy it. Is that a big drawback? I don't know. Maybe it would also add into the final price if you got those with the amp. I think most people, they don't use the foot switchers, so maybe it's a good move from Supro to not include those and to shave off the final price just a tiny bit. But if you prefer to use foot switchers for those features, you would have to buy that on top of the amp. The price is $1,500 for this amp. I think that's a fair price for what you get. You do get a lot, really. For the complete beginner, it's probably a bit too much, but also I'm not sure if this is something that a complete beginner would necessarily need to go for. It's a bit too advanced for them maybe, or it's not too advanced to use, but do they really need to have a 2 notes DSP built into the amp for recording and stuff like that? So yeah, I think the price is fair. The only real competition to a similar amp is the Rev D25, which is a combo with a built-in 2 notes, and that is a bit more expensive actually from what I can see. I have not tried that one, but it's a similar concept. So yeah, if you need a solution, an amp where you can play live, you can rehearse, you can record with it, you can practice with it, the Supro Airwave is a very good option for you, I think. Okay, thank you for watching and thank you for tagging along around Norway for this video. Hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.